A rich CEO had not touched a woman in 20 years, but his new assistant changed everything. Hi everyone. Welcome back to another heart-touching story. Today, we're sharing the emotional journey of a powerful CEO who refused all contact with women until one assistant changed his life forever. This story is full of pain, healing, and a love that breaks down even the strongest walls. Before we begin the story, leave a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Now, enjoy the story. That morning at Smith Enterprises, the mood was very tense. The usual busy hallways were full of whispers and curious looks. "Did you hear?" one admin worker whispered. "Yes, Henry Smith hired a new assistant." "Does she know about the rule?" "I don't think so. This could be a big problem." The rule was clear and strict. Henry Smith did not touch women at all. Not a handshake, not even a small accidental touch. Over the years, the female workers got used to this strange habit. Some thought it was just something rich people do. Others had crazy ideas, like maybe something bad had happened in his past. But no one ever got close to him. Sophia Morris, the new personal assistant, knew nothing about this. It was her first day, and she didn't understand why everyone was acting strange. People looked at her with a mix of pity and interest, like she was walking into danger without knowing it. "Morris," called Emma, the executive secretary. "Mr. Smith needs a tie. Get one and take it to him right now." Sophia blinked. "Sorry, a tie? He has a meeting in 10 minutes. Hurry." "Okay, just a tie." No problem, she thought. What could go wrong? She walked to the executive dressing room and opened the cabinet with his ties. Then a small issue came up. There were about 50 ties. What color would a cold and serious CEO wear? She said quietly. She chose a navy blue one, then a black one, then grey. Then she got nervous and picked them all. Her arms full of ties, she walked to his office. All she had to do was hand him the tie and leave. Simple. She knocked. "Come in," a deep voice answered. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. Henry Smith was standing by his desk, fixing his shirt cuffs. He looked like someone who had just solved a big business problem before breakfast. He looked at her and frowned. "What is that?" he asked. "Ties," Sophia said, stopping in front of him. "All of them. I didn't know which color you liked." Henry stared at her, then sighed deeply, trying to stay calm. "Give me one." Sophia dropped the ties on the desk and picked one quickly. Henry raised his eyebrow. It had tiny rubber ducks on it. She looked at it. "Oh, not that one." She quickly gave him a different one. "Navy blue?" Henry gave a short nod. Sophia smiled, feeling proud. Job done. Now she could leave. Then she noticed something strange. Henry was tying his tie the wrong way. She blinked, then again. He was ruining the tie like he was trying to fight an invisible ghost. "This is a disaster," she thought. She felt like she had to help. Without thinking, she stepped forward and raised her hands. "Wait, you're doing it wrong. Let me—" And then she touched him. The moment her fingers touched his neck, Henry froze. Sophia felt his whole body go tense. The change in the air was sharp. Then, suddenly, "No!" Henry jumped back like he had been shocked. Sophia's eyes grew wide. "Oh my God! What happened?" Henry stared at her like he had just survived something horrible. "You touched me." "I was only fixing your tie," Sophia said, confused. It seemed like he was overreacting. Never do that again. Okay, relax. I'm not dangerous. Henry rubbed his neck, like he wanted to wipe away the touch. His breathing was fast. He stared at her with a troubled look. You don't understand, he said tightly. Then explain it, Sophia said, folding her arms. Because this makes no sense. His fists were tight. It looked like he was fighting something inside himself. I can't be touched. What do you mean? Do you explode? Turn into a frog? She asked, trying to joke. This is not a joke, he said. His voice was full of pain. Sophia stopped talking. He wasn't angry. He was scared. Henry looked away. His jaw was tight. Just don't do it again. Sophia didn't know what to say. She never thought someone could react so badly to just a small touch. But when she looked at his face, she saw something deeper than anger. He was afraid, terrified. Sophia sighed and raised her hands. All right, I won't touch you again. Henry's shoulders relaxed a little, but he still looked tense. You can go, he said. Sophia rolled her eyes. Fine, boss. No touching. But one day I'll find out what's so scary about it. She left the office quickly, not understanding what had just happened. After the door closed, Henry touched the spot where her fingers had been. His heart was still beating fast. This had never happened to him before. Somehow, he could still feel her touch, and that changed everything. Everyone in the office was watching Sophia as she walked out of the CEO's office. Her face was a little red, and she looked confused. She had no idea what had just happened. Why did Henry Smith act like she had cursed him with just a touch? The only word that came to her mind was dramatic. She went to her desk and sat down, rubbing her forehead. Her first day already felt like a disaster. So, you survived? The voice came from Max Turner, the head of the finance department. He was in his mid-30s, always carried a cup of coffee, and acted like nothing surprised him at this company. What do you mean, survived? Sophia asked with a frown. Max leaned on her desk and took a sip. No one touches Henry. Ever. Sophia blinked. Okay, that's weird. Why not? He just can't stand it. It's his rule. No woman can touch him. Sophia sighed. Well, he could have told me before acting like it was the end of the world. Wet. Max's eyes got big. You touched him? Technically, yes, but it was his fault. His tie looked terrible, and I just had to fix it. Max stared at her like she had just broken an important law. You touched him. I just fixed his tie. Max laughed, shocked. Congratulations, Sophia. You just broke a 20-year rule. She rolled her eyes. Oh, please, no one dies from a small touch. But inside Henry's office, he wasn't fine at all. He couldn't concentrate. His eyes were on the report on his screen, but none of it made sense. The numbers, charts, and graphs were all a blur because of one small thing, a touch. He touched his shirt collar, where his tie was still perfect. That's what made him feel strange. He didn't feel nervous or disgusted like before. In fact, he didn't feel bad at all, and that scared him. The last time someone had touched him like that, 20 years ago, it ended badly. Since then, his body refused all contact from women. So why was Sophia different? He suddenly stood up and walked to the glass wall, looking out at the city. He saw his reflection. He looked like a man who didn't understand himself anymore. He hoped it was just a one-time thing. He had to be sure. He needed to test it. 2 hours later, Sophia was working on a report when the secretary's voice came through the phone. "Mr. Smith wants to see you in his office." Sophia froze. "And bring the investor report. He wants you to give it to him directly." She raised an eyebrow but grabbed the report and walked to his office. When she entered, Henry was standing behind his desk, looking at her with the same serious face. "Here is the report, Mr. Smith," she said, and walked toward him. Henry held out his hand. She paused for a second. "This guy panicked earlier just because I touched him," she thought. Still, she gave him the papers. When his fingers touched hers, his body stiffened again. It was quick and small. No one else would have noticed, but inside it felt huge. A jolt rushed through him. His heart skipped a beat. Trying to act normal, he grabbed the papers too fast. One page slipped and fell to the floor. "Damn," he muttered. Sophia bent down to pick it up, but Henry bent down at the same time. Their heads bumped together. It wasn't hard, but it made things awkward. Their faces were suddenly very close. Sophia held back a laugh. "If this was a reflex test, you passed." Henry cleared his throat and stood up straight, quickly collecting the papers. "That wasn't a test." "Oh, sure. Bumping heads is a perfect way to work." Henry didn't reply. He turned to his desk and acted like nothing had happened. Sophia crossed her arms. "Mr. Smith?" "Yes?" "Are you nervous?" He looked at her with a cold, serious face. "I don't get nervous." Sophia smiled. "Then you won't mind if I do this?" She lifted her hand slightly, pretending to touch him again. Henry quickly stepped back, almost tripping over his chair. Silence. Sophia laughed. "Wow. For someone who doesn't get nervous, that was a big reaction." Henry gave her a sharp look. "That's enough for today. You can leave." Sophia walked out, still laughing. Henry, for the first time in many years, didn't know how to deal with the situation. She was a problem, and even worse, he was starting to like that. Henry Smith was completely confused after the tie moment and the report that made him touch Sophia Morris's hand, even for just a second. He couldn't stop noticing her, and it bothered him. For 20 years, no one had broken his personal space. He always avoided touching women. It wasn't a problem. It had become his rule, his way of staying in control. But Sophia was different. She wasn't scared of him. She didn't hesitate when speaking to him. Even worse, she didn't take his rules seriously. Now, Henry had made a big mistake for someone like him. He had started paying attention to her. In just a few hours, he had noticed he was looking for her without meaning to. When he passed the cafeteria, he saw her laughing with co-workers. That made him feel strangely annoyed. During a meeting, he saw her biting her lip while focusing. His brain remembered that detail for no reason, and to his surprise, he found out she talked to herself when she was alone. Earlier, he had seen her typing and mumbling. Who made these awful spreadsheets? Were they created just to annoy assistants? She had said. Then she sighed and muttered, "If I mess this up, he'll glare at me like I ruined his life." Henry raised his eyebrows. Was she talking about him? He shouldn't have cared, but he did. Then something happened. Sophia made a small mistake. It was just a formatting error in a financial report. Not serious, but enough for Henry to notice. He picked up the paper, checked the mistake, and pressed the intercom. "Sophia, in my office. Now." Silence. After a few seconds, she answered, "You mean, like, right now?" Henry closed his eyes, feeling annoyed. That's what I said. 2 minutes later, Sophia walked in. If you ever call me like that again through the intercom, I might have a mini heart attack. Henry didn't respond. He just held up the report, pointed at the mistake, and stared at her. What is this? Sophia tilted her head. A piece of paper? He rolled his eyes. What's wrong with it? She took it, scanned it quickly, then sighed. Okay, I admit it. I forgot to align the columns in the second chart. But Mr. Smith, really, no one dies from a messy table. If I wanted chaos, I'd start a tech company and wear flip-flops to work. But no, I have a reputation to protect. Sophia raised her eyebrows. So, you don't wear flip-flops even at home? Henry closed his eyes again, clearly out of patience. Sophia. All right. She raised her hands. I'll fix it. No more messy charts. I promise. She turned to leave. But before she reached the door, Henry asked, without thinking, Do you always talk to yourself? Sophia stopped. Slowly, she turned back to him. What? I saw you mumbling earlier today. Do you do that often? Her eyes widened. You saw me talking to myself? Yes. She looked shocked. Oh, no. She covered her face with her hands. That's terrible. Why? Because I try hard to seem normal. And now you know I have this weird habit. Henry frowned. Talking to yourself is a flaw, isn't it? No. Sophia paused. You're not joking, are you? Henry sighed. Sophia, I don't have time to joke. I'm a billionaire, CEO. She looked at him for a second, then started laughing. That's when Henry noticed something strange. He felt comfortable. Sophia wasn't impressed by his money, and somehow that made her different. She didn't treat him like someone who couldn't be approached, and without meaning to, he started to like that. But he knew he couldn't let it continue. If it did, he would lose control, and Henry Smith never allowed that. Henry didn't like anything that distracted him. His world was always neat and organized. He planned everything carefully to avoid surprises. But in the last few days, everything felt off, and the reason was Sophia Morris. Since she broke his rule, Henry had been acting in ways he didn't understand. He found himself noticing small things about her, like how she frowned when she focused, or how she played with her bracelet while reading. He told himself he had to stop, but there was something that bothered him more than everything else, and the touch. For 20 years, he avoided physical contact with women. Just the idea of someone touching him made him feel tense and uncomfortable. Then Sophia touched him, and nothing bad happened. He didn't feel disgusted or nervous. He didn't even want to pull away. That thought stayed in his mind, even though he tried to ignore it. He needed to focus on work, but while holding a gold pen and trying to read a contract worth millions of dollars, his thoughts went back to a memory he didn't like to visit. 16 years ago, Henry wasn't the powerful businessman he is now. He was just a young man trying to prove himself. At that time, he believed in love. He loved a woman named Amelia Wright. She had a sweet smile and kind eyes. He gave her his heart, thinking she would be his wife. But then he found out the truth. She didn't love him. She loved his money, his position, and his power. When another man with more influence came along, she left Henry right away. The breakup was not just painful, it was embarrassing. He remembered the moment clearly. Amelia held his hands and said in a cold voice, "You were never enough." Those words cut deeply. From that day, something inside Henry changed. He realized that a gentle touch could be fake, and love could be a trick. He built a rule around himself. He stopped trusting people. He didn't let anyone get close. He only made safe, professional relationships. And then, 20 years passed. No touching, no closeness, no emotion, until Sophia Morris. Henry blinked and returned to the present moment. He realized he was holding his pen so tightly, his fingers were turning white. His heart was beating fast. He had to stop this. He wouldn't let one assistant ruin everything he built. If Sophia had broken through his wall, he would make that wall even stronger. No more relaxed moments. No more personal closeness. No more touching. Henry stood up and walked toward the door. He had to end this now. Sophia was at her desk, chewing a granola bar while looking at her computer. Everything seemed normal, until she felt someone staring at her. She looked up and saw Henry Smith in front of her, looking very serious. She almost choked. "Mr. Smith," he crossed his arms. "From now on, our relationship will be strictly professional." Sophia blinked. "Wasn't it already?" he continued. "No jokes, no touching, no standing too close." Sophia looked confused. "Sorry, but we hardly talk unless it's about work. Do you think I'm trying to flirt with you or something?" Henry didn't expect her to say that. "I didn't say that. But you're acting like I'm dangerous or something." He opened his mouth to reply, but said nothing. Deep down, he knew she was right. He was acting strangely, but he felt like he had to. It was the only way he knew how to stay in control. "Just follow the rules," he said firmly. Sophia narrowed her eyes, but didn't argue. "All right, boss. Whatever you say." She turned back to her work and continued typing, not giving him another glance. Henry stayed there for a few more seconds. For some reason, the thought of Sophia not paying attention to him anymore made him feel uneasy. He walked away before he did something he might regret. The next day, Sophia decided to stay distant. If Henry wanted everything to be professional and cold, then that's what he would get. She only gave him reports, stayed formal, and didn't say anything more than necessary. But to her surprise, he seemed annoyed. During the day, she noticed he kept glancing at her, looking serious and showing small signs of frustration. Then, something unexpected happened. Late in the afternoon, Henry asked Sophia to come to his office. When she came in, he was holding 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to her. She looked confused. "You brought me coffee?" Henry looked away. "The barista made a mistake. I picked it up by accident." She knew that wasn't true. "Oh, really?" Because baristas always confuse 2 exact coffees for the same person, right? He said nothing. Sophia tried not to smile. Henry Smith was trying to make peace in his own strange way. Maybe he was more confused than he wanted to show. That only made things more interesting. That night, Henry realized something even worse than his problems with being touched. He realized that, no matter how much he tried to fight it, Sophia Morris was already in his thoughts. And he couldn't change that. Henry never enjoyed social events, gala dinners, business parties, charity nights. It was always the same people with fake smiles and shallow conversations. But, as the CEO of Smith Enterprises, he had to go. Skipping these events would only raise questions. Tonight, there was a charity auction. The place would be full of business people, investors, and rich guests pretending to care while trying to outbid each other. And worse, he had to bring someone with him. Usually, a CEO like him would take a business partner, a fiancé, or someone important. But none of those options felt right. Then, without thinking too much, he made a quick choice. "Sophia," he said. She looked up from her computer, surprised. "Yes? I have a charity event tonight. I need a date. You're coming with me." She blinked. "Sorry, what?" "It's just a charity auction. A simple event. You just have to be there, stay quiet, and represent the company by my side." Sophia crossed her arms and looked at him closely. "Let me get this straight," she said, tilting her head. "You've spent the past few days making it very clear that you don't want anyone getting close to you. And now you want me to go to a fancy event with you?" Henry stayed calm. "Yes," she sighed loudly. "Mr. Smith, you do know you're sending some seriously mixed signals. Just agree, Sophia. It's better than taking anyone else." Wow, what a nice way to ask. He ignored her sarcasm and looked back at his computer. "Dress properly. I'll pick you up at 7. Sophia wanted to say something, but stopped. If he wanted to take her, she wasn't going to say no. At exactly 7, Sophia was ready. She didn't look like her usual self at the office. Tonight, she looked beautiful. Her black dress with thin straps fit her perfectly. It was elegant, but simple. Her hair, usually in a bun, was now down in soft waves. When Henry arrived in a black tuxedo and saw her, he paused for a second. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Is there a problem?" He quickly looked away and returned to his serious face. "Number, let's go." They walked to the car. A few minutes later, they arrived at the event. The place was grand. Big chandeliers, soft classical music, and waiters serving champagne. Sophia looked around and noticed many people staring at Henry. "You seem to be very popular here." "Popular isn't the word I'd use." "Oh, right. You're the quiet CEO who never touches women. I bet everyone is wondering how someone got you to bring a date." He sighed. "Please be careful with your words." She smiled. "But where's the fun in that?" While they talked, more guests began coming over to greet Henry. He stayed polite and calm, as always. But Sophia noticed someone in the crowd she didn't want to see. A tall blonde woman with sharp eyes walked toward them. Her red dress stood out against her pale skin, and her smile looked practiced. "Henry," she said, with a cold, familiar tone. He simply nodded. "Amelia." Sophia felt the air grow tense. This had to be Amelia, the woman who broke Henry's heart years ago. From the way she looked at him, their story wasn't over. "I'm surprised to see you here with a date," Amelia said, looking closely at Sophia. Sophia decided to have a little fun. She gently linked her arm through Henry's and smiled sweetly. "He's a gentleman. He would never let me come alone." Henry's body stiffened. Amelia gave a fake smile. "Is that so? Well, Henry has always been private." Sophia tilted her head. Maybe he was just waiting for someone who could help him change that. Amelia studied her, but didn't say anything more. Then she turned and walked away. Henry sighed. "That wasn't needed." Sophia shrugged. "I won't let an ex try to make me feel small." "You enjoy causing trouble, don't you?" he asked. She smiled. "Let's just say I like keeping things balanced." Henry looked at her longer than he meant to. There was something different about her. She didn't fear him. She wasn't nervous around him. And for the first time that evening, he realized Maybe it wasn't so bad having her by his side. Later that night, when they finally left the event, Sophia was tired. She dropped into the car seat and sighed. That was more tiring than a full day at the office. Henry didn't say anything. He just drove. Sophia looked over at him. So, was it a success? He nodded. Yes. The company made a strong impression. She smiled. And what about me? Did I do okay as your formal event date? Henry glanced at her briefly, then focused on the road. You were tolerable. She laughed. Is that your way of giving me a compliment? He didn't reply, but for the first time that night, a small smile appeared on his face. Sophia saw it, and she liked what she saw. When they reached her building, she turned to him before getting out. Thanks for taking me, he nodded. Good night, Sophia. She smiled and stepped out. As he watched the building's door close behind her, he felt something strange. He should have been happy that the night was over, but he wasn't. And that confused him more than anything. Henry Smith couldn't sleep. It was 2:43 a.m., and he was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling in his luxury apartment, hoping to find some peace. But he knew exactly what was on his mind. Sophia Morris. The event was supposed to be simple. He would take her, fulfill his duty, and forget about it. But instead, her face kept replaying in his thoughts. The way she smiled when teasing Amelia, the way her black dress moved when she walked, the way she held his arm so naturally, without fear, without hesitation. And worst of all, he didn't feel the usual need to step away. That scared him. For years, he had avoided being touched. It made him tense and uncomfortable. But Sophia didn't make him feel that way. And that was something he didn't know how to handle. He shut his eyes, trying to forget. But the more he tried, the more he thought about her. Frustrated, he got up and went to the kitchen for water. Maybe this feeling would pass. Maybe it didn't mean anything. He just needed to follow his routine and avoid thinking about Sophia. The next morning, Henry arrived at the office at his usual time. He walked through the lobby without stopping, just like always. People stood straighter when he passed. No one tried to speak to him. Then he saw Sophia. She was at her desk, finishing her coffee, laughing at something Max Turner had said. That laugh. It stirred something in him. Without realizing it, he slowed his steps. It was a small reaction, but Max noticed. The head of finance gave Henry a knowing look, as if he understood exactly what was going on. Good morning, Mr. Smith, Max said, smiling a little. Henry quickly hid his expression and kept walking, ignoring Max's words. Sophia turned to him with a folder in her hand. Good morning, boss. Ready for another exciting day of spreadsheets and meetings? He stopped next to her desk, eyes on the folder she held. Is the report ready? Right here. She handed the folder to him. Henry paused for a second before taking it. He still remembered how it felt the last time they touched. But to his surprise, Sophia didn't let go right away. She held on, making him look at her. Are you okay? She asked. Her question caught him by surprise. What? You seem off today. He kept a straight face and pulled the folder out of her hands more firmly. I'm perfectly fine. Sophia narrowed her eyes, clearly not convinced. If you say so. She turned back to her computer. But Henry didn't move right away. He stood there a second too long, then walked into his office without another word. He didn't want to admit it, but Sophia could see past his cold front. The day felt long and difficult. Henry tried to stay focused on work, but his thoughts kept going back to the past few days. He needed to snap out of it. She was just an assistant, nothing more. So why couldn't he stop noticing everything she did? By late afternoon, he decided to take control. He called Sophia to his office. When she walked in, she looked relaxed, not nervous at all. She leaned against the doorframe and crossed her arms. "Go ahead." Henry took a breath. "From now on, I want to keep things strictly professional. No extra conversations, no jokes." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Are you serious?" "Yes." She tilted her head and looked at him closely. "So that means you'll also stop staring at me all the time, right?" Henry froze. "I don't stare at you." Sophia smiled playfully. "Oh, really? Then it must be coincidence that every time I look up, your eyes are already on me." He stayed firm. "You're mistaken." She laughed. "If you say so, boss." She turned to leave. But something tightened inside Henry. Before he could stop himself, he spoke. "Are you free for dinner tonight?" Sophia stopped and turned slowly, surprised. "Wait, what?" Henry cleared his throat. "Dinner. With me?" She blinked. "Is this a joke?" "Number." She looked at him for a few seconds. "And here, I thought you didn't want any unnecessary conversation." "It's a business dinner," he said quickly. "Of course it is," she said with a smirk. Henry realized he had already lost this round. 2 hours later, they were sitting in a fancy restaurant. Sophia looked over the menu and joked, "Wow, even the prices here seem proud of themselves." Henry didn't reply. "So is this how you always ask someone to dinner? No reason? No warning?" "I thought you wouldn't say no," he said, putting his menu down. She laughed. "And I didn't. I'm just surprised." The waiter came, took their order, and walked away. Sophia leaned closer to the table. "Why did you bring me here, Henry?" He paused. "I told you. It's business." "Liar." He raised an eyebrow. "What?" "You didn't bring me here for business. You're trying to figure something out." Henry didn't move. "I saw how you looked at me last night. You're trying to understand what's different." She rested her chin on her hand. "What happened to you?" He didn't answer, because for once, he didn't know what to say. And worse, he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Later, when he drove her home, the ride was quiet. He parked in front of her building. "That was a nice dinner," Sophia said with a smile. Henry kept looking at the steering wheel. "Sophia." She looked at him. "Yes?" He paused, then asked the question that had been in his mind all day. "What did you do to me?" Sophia froze, then smiled just a little. "Nothing." She opened the door and stepped out. Henry sat there, alone, with her answer echoing in his head. But he knew that even if she said she did nothing, everything had changed. Sophia Morris had changed everything, and now he didn't know what to do. In the days after that dinner, Henry tried to return to his normal life. He followed his usual routine, but it didn't help. He still thought about her. Before, life was simple. He worked, made deals, and never cared too much about anyone. Now, he found himself looking for her in the halls, noticing her laugh, sensing her before he even saw her. And even worse, whenever Sophia came close to him, his body reacted in a way it never had before. His heart beat faster, and his breathing changed slightly. He started noticing small things about her that he usually wouldn't. That's when he understood how serious this was. Sophia was becoming a distraction, and he couldn't let that happen. He had to stop it before it went too far. By the afternoon, Henry was in the conference room going over a contract when he heard loud laughter from outside. He immediately knew it was Sophia, even before looking. Her laugh was light and natural, full of energy. It didn't match the quiet, serious mood of the office, but somehow it made everything feel less boring. He looked through the glass and saw her talking to Max Turner, and it annoyed him more than he expected. Max was standing close to Sophia, saying something that made her laugh again. Henry tightened his jaw. Why was he feeling jealous? That couldn't be. He never got jealous. But now he was, and it didn't make sense. Without even thinking, he stood up. He walked straight toward them. Sophia. His voice came out sharper than planned. She turned with a smile, but it disappeared when she saw his serious face. Yes, boss? I need to talk to you now. Max raised his eyebrows like he understood what was really happening. I guess that's my signal to go. It was nice talking to you, Sophia. He winked at her and walked off. Henry didn't like that at all. Sophia crossed her arms. What's wrong? He didn't reply right away because he didn't have a reason. He had come over without thinking. Henry, are you okay? She asked, tilting her head. Henry blinked, finally realizing how silly he was acting. He sighed and looked frustrated. Forget it. Get back to work. He turned to leave, but then he felt it, a soft touch on his wrist. It was light, barely there, but enough to stop him. He looked down at her hand on his wrist, his heart beating fast. Henry, she said gently, can you just be honest? What's really going on? He couldn't answer. The truth was, he didn't even know himself, so he did what he always did, pulled away. Nothing. Get back to work, he said, and walked away without looking back. But he knew it was too late. Her touch still stayed with him. In the days that followed, Henry tried everything to stay away from Sophia. He gave more jobs to his team, avoided her department, and forced himself not to look when she was near. But none of it worked. The more he tried to stay away, the more she was there. He entered the elevator. Sophia was inside. He went for coffee. Sophia was already there. He worked late. She was leaving at the same time. It felt like the world was playing tricks on him. Then, one day, Sophia came to him. She knocked once, then walked into his office without waiting for permission. Henry had known this moment would come. She closed the door and crossed her arms. Enough, Henry. What's going on? He sat up straight. I don't know what you mean. You don't? Then why are you avoiding me? He stayed silent. Sophia sighed loudly. If this is about dinner the other night, just say it. Did I do something wrong? Number. Then, why are you treating me like I'm dangerous? Henry rubbed his face. He was tired. Sophia, it's nothing. Just forget it. She looked at him for a few seconds, then gave a small, knowing smile. Henry, are you afraid of me? His eyes quickly met hers. Don't be silly. Then prove it. She stepped closer. Henry didn't move. If you really feel nothing, then there's no reason to be nervous, right? She stepped even closer. His heart was racing. She gently reached out and touched his wrist. The touch was soft, but it hit Henry like a shock. Sophia smiled. See? You're nervous. Henry quickly pulled back. That means nothing. Of course not, she said, laughing. You just turned pale and look like a teenager who who just got his first kiss. He didn't laugh. "Sophia, stop this." "No," she said seriously, "because I know there's something going on, and I'm going to find out what it is." Henry didn't say anything, because in that moment he realized she was right. There was something happening, something Henry wasn't ready to face. No matter how much he tried to deny it, he knew he couldn't avoid it for much longer. Henry Smith was starting to reach his breaking point. In the past few days, he had tried everything to ignore the truth that Sophia Morris was now his biggest distraction, but nothing helped. Staying away from her only made him want to see her more. Acting like he didn't care just made him feel more frustrated. And now it was worse, because Sophia knew. She knew something had changed in him, and that made everything more complicated. She had started pushing limits. She touched his wrist without fear, joked about his reactions, and made him feel things he had not felt in years. He didn't want her to have that power over him, but deep down, he couldn't deny it anymore. He was affected. And then came the moment that changed everything. That evening, there was a corporate event on the rooftop of one of the city's fanciest hotels. Henry knew Sophia would be there. It was part of her job. But he wasn't ready for what he saw when he arrived. The moment he stepped in, his eyes went straight to her. Sophia was wearing a deep red dress. It fit her perfectly and had an open back. Her hair was loose, and she looked elegant. The smile on her face was easy and warm. She looked like she belonged in that world. Henry didn't like how it made him feel. He couldn't explain it, but the only word that came close was possessiveness, and that was dangerous. The night dragged on. He kept his usual calm, greeting investors, talking business, and avoiding Sophia when he could. But every time he looked around, she was there, laughing, chatting, being the center of attention. Then he saw something that pushed him too far. Sophia was standing at the bar talking to a man Henry knew well, Nathan Carter. Nathan was good-looking, confident, and famous for flirting with women. Henry watched as Nathan placed his hand on Sophia's waist. Something snapped inside him. Without thinking, he walked quickly toward them. Sophia was laughing at something Nathan said when she suddenly felt someone next to her. Before she could react, Henry grabbed her arm. His grip was firm, not painful, but full of tension. She turned, surprised. "Henry?" Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Well, if it isn't Henry Smith, are you interrupting something?" Henry didn't respond. He looked at Sophia. "I need to talk to you, now." She blinked. "We're in the middle of a conversation. Can it wait?" Henry didn't answer. His grip tightened slightly. Nathan smirked. "Relax, Henry. I wasn't trying to steal your girl." Sophia's eyes widened. "What? No?" But Henry was already leading her away. He took her to a quieter spot on the rooftop, far from everyone else. Sophia pulled her arm back and crossed her arms. "What is wrong with you?" Henry ran a hand through his hair and sighed deeply. "He was touching you." She blinked. "So what? It was just a casual touch." He looked directly into her eyes. "I didn't like it." Sophia was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled slightly. "Henry, are you jealous?" He swallowed. "Number. Then what is this about?" He had no answer. Sophia stepped closer. "Tell me the truth." Henry could smell her perfume. The closeness was too much. "There is no truth," he said in a low voice. She tilted her head. "So If I do the same thing again with someone else, you wouldn't care? Henry closed his eyes for a moment. Then, before he could stop himself, he reached out, grabbed the back of her neck, and kissed her. It was sudden and strong. No pause, no warning. Sophia froze for a second, then kissed him back. She grabbed his jacket and held on. Everything else disappeared. The music, the people, the rooftop. Only their kiss existed. Henry pulled back first. He opened his eyes and saw Sophia looking at him, surprised and out of breath. That's when it hit him. This shouldn't have happened, he said, his voice cold. Sophia blinked. What? He stepped back. It was a mistake. She crossed her arms, her eyes still locked on his. So you kiss me like that, and now say it was a mistake. Henry didn't know what to say. He could still feel her lips. His body still felt her touch. But he knew he had to stop this before it went too far. He couldn't give her control. Forget it, he said, making his voice firm and cold. Sophia gave a sarcastic laugh. Henry, you really are unbelievable. He turned to walk away, but before he could take 2 steps, she touched his arm again. Don't run. He stopped, but he didn't look back. She stepped closer. You kissed me, Henry. You pulled me in, and now you want to act like it didn't happen? He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to stay calm. Then, still not turning around, he said the only thing that could push her away. It was just an impulse, that's all. Sophia didn't move. Henry felt the silence between them grow heavy. Then she let go of his arm. All right, if that's how you want it, then fine. We'll do it your way. Her voice wasn't angry, just strong. And at that moment, Henry knew he hadn't ended anything. If anything, he had made it worse. He was now completely trapped. Henry Smith was no longer in control. After the kiss, he tried his best to pretend it never happened. He ignored Sophia at work, focused on meetings and papers, and avoided her eyes. But it didn't help. Every time he closed his eyes, he remembered the kiss. Every time he heard her laugh somewhere nearby, he remembered the way she felt in his arms. And every time she walked past him without looking, something in his chest tightened. She was playing smart. She didn't ask him to explain. She didn't chase him. She just acted like he didn't matter at all, and that was driving him crazy. By Friday night, Henry couldn't take it anymore. He wasn't the kind of person who drank often, but tonight he wanted a break from thinking. So he went to a fancy bar in the city, a quiet place where rich professionals relaxed after long days. He ordered a glass of whiskey and sat in the far corner, holding his drink, trying not to think about her. But things got worse. As he leaned back to take a sip, he saw someone walk into the bar. It was Sophia, and she wasn't alone. Walking next to her, laughing and looking relaxed, was Max Turner. Henry's heart started beating faster. He didn't know what bothered him more, the fact that she was in the same bar, or the fact that she was with Max. And Max was no fool. He knew how to impress. And no matter how hard Henry tried to act like he didn't care, he did. He hated it. Sophia hadn't seen him yet. But then she looked up. Their eyes met for a moment. Henry froze. Sophia held his gaze for a second, then smiled and looked away, turning back to Max as if Henry wasn't there at all. Henry's hand tightened around his glass. She was winning this game. 10 minutes later, Henry couldn't take it anymore. He wasn't going to sit there while she laughed and flirted like he didn't exist. So he stood up and walked toward her. Max noticed first. "Oh, Henry, what brings you here?" Henry didn't answer. He looked at Sophia. "Can we talk?" Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Now?" She looked amused. "Sorry," she said, "but I'm busy." Henry's patience started to disappear. 5 minutes. That's all I need. Sophia sighed and looked at Max. "Do you mind?" Max shrugged. "As long as he doesn't kidnap you, go ahead." Sophia smiled and stood up. "All right. 5 minutes." Henry gently grabbed her arm and took her to a quiet corner of the bar. Sophia turned to him, arms crossed. "So, what's so important?" Henry didn't know where to begin. He stared at her, searching for the right words. But before he could speak, Sophia tilted her head and smiled. "Henry, are you jealous?" That question hit him like lightning. He couldn't say yes, but he couldn't say no either. "Don't be ridiculous." She raised one eyebrow. "Then why are you here? Why did you pull me away from my date?" His jaw tightened. "This is not a date." "Oh? So now you decide who I'm allowed to be with." Henry didn't answer. Sophia stepped closer. "Tell me the truth, Henry. What do you want from me?" He didn't know how to answer. Or maybe he did, but he didn't want to say it out loud. So instead, he did something else. Before he could stop himself, he reached for her and kissed her again. This time, it wasn't sudden, it wasn't confusion. It was a choice. Sophia kissed him back right away. She grabbed his jacket and pulled him closer. Their lips moved together, their breathing mixed. The bar, the people, the world disappeared. Only they existed in that moment. When they finally pulled away, Henry saw something in her eyes. He knew things would never be the same again. "Is this still a mistake?" Sophia asked, out of breath. Henry rubbed his face, clearly frustrated. "Yes." Sophia let out a small laugh. "Well, I don't think it is." Henry didn't know what to do anymore, but he understood one thing. He couldn't run from this any longer. Henry Smith had never felt so out of control. He had spent his whole life hiding from emotions, staying away from anything that might break his calm. But now, looking at Sophia Morris and still feeling her kiss, he knew he had already lost. He kissed her again, without thinking, without fear, without walls. This time, there was no tension between them. It was just the two of them, and the strong feelings they could no longer deny. Sophia kissed him back, with just as much emotion. She held his shirt tightly, like she wasn't ready to let go. It was as if she had finally reached what she had been hoping for. When they pulled away, both of them breathing heavily, Henry didn't say a word. He didn't need to. Sophia smiled. Finally, something stirred inside Henry. He no longer knew what was right or wrong, but he knew he couldn't fight this anymore. In the days that followed, everything felt different. Henry tried to act normal, keeping his cold and professional look, but for the first time, Sophia didn't allow that. She was always around. In the office, she gave him teasing looks. In the hallway, she walked a bit too close. During meetings, she watched him like she knew exactly what he was trying to hide. And Henry saw he was losing. Sophia wasn't scared to show how she felt, but he still was. And each day, he gave in a little more. On Friday, Henry came to work and found a coffee on his desk. He frowned. "What is this?" Sophia smiled from her desk. "A coffee." "Why?" "Because I wanted to." He looked at her, confused, but she just kept smiling. Then Henry noticed something surprising. He was smiling too. He couldn't hide the truth anymore. She had changed him in a way no one else ever had. And maybe he didn't want to run from that anymore. That night, Henry was at home, trying to work, when he got a message. "I'm outside your building. Are you going to invite me up? Or keep acting like nothing is going on?" Henry felt his heart speed up. He could ignore the message. He could say nothing, but he didn't want to. "Come up," he replied. Minutes later, Sophia stood at his door. She was wearing jeans and a black top, simple but beautiful. "You're not so hard to break, you know," she said with a smile. Henry didn't say anything. Then, without thinking, he pulled her into a kiss. This time, there was no fear, no stopping. The kiss that started as a small flame turned into something strong. Henry held her close, feeling the warmth of her body. His hands moved along her back as he finally let himself feel everything he had pushed away. Sophia didn't hold back either. She had wanted this for a long time. Now there was nothing in the way. The apartment was quiet, but the energy between them was strong. Henry knew he should stop, but he couldn't. Her skin, her smell, her lips, it was all too much. Then, as Sophia placed her hands on his chest and began to undo his shirt, Henry stepped back quickly. It was automatic, like a sudden shock. Sophia looked at him, confused. "What's wrong?" Henry took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. He wanted to explain, but no words came. He wasn't ready, not yet. Sophia crossed her arms. "Do you want me to leave?" The idea of her leaving made his chest feel heavy. He didn't want her to go, but he also didn't know how to keep going. So, he said the only thing he knew how to say. "I think this was a mistake." Sophia stood still. Neither of them spoke. Then she gave a laugh, but it wasn't happy. It was a laugh of disbelief. "A mistake? Really, Henry?" He stayed quiet. Sophia shook her head. She looked disappointed. "You know what? I should have seen this coming. You always do this. The moment something feels out of control, you push it away." Henry didn't say anything, because she was right. Sophia picked up her bag and walked to the door. Before leaving, she looked back at him. "You can't hide from this forever, Henry." Then she left. Henry stood alone, the silence in the apartment making her absence feel even louder. For the first time, he felt truly lost. In the next few days, Henry focused only on work. If he was quiet before, now he was like a shadow. He did everything to avoid Sophia. If he saw her in the elevator, he would turn and walk away. If she entered the meeting room, he would leave quickly. But he knew he couldn't avoid her forever, and he was right. Late one night, Sophia finally stopped him. Henry was leaving the office when he saw her standing next to his car. She had her arms crossed and looked serious. He thought about going back inside, but he knew she wouldn't let it go. With a deep breath, he walked over. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" "I'm waiting for you to stop acting like a fool." His face tightened. "It's not that simple." "Yes, it is. You're the one making it difficult." He unlocked the car, but before he could open the door, she put her hand on his. Her touch was gentle, but strong. He froze. She stepped closer. "Tell me the truth, Henry." He tried to move away, but she held on. "Do you want me? Yes or no?" Henry closed his eyes. Then he answered truthfully, "Yes." Sophia smiled. Then stop running. He looked at her. What if I mess this up? She laughed. You already are. Henry knew she was right. So he made his choice. He sighed, then pulled her into a kiss. This time, he didn't step away. There was no fear, no holding back. He didn't want to let her go. He kissed her deeply, with all the feelings he had tried to hide. There were no walls between them now, no excuses, just the two of them finally giving in. Sophia kissed him back right away. She grabbed his shirt collar and pulled him closer, like this was what she had been waiting for from the beginning. Then thunder rolled in the sky. They pulled apart and noticed it was about to rain. Sophia laughed, still holding on to his shirt. Looks like the sky wants to make this moment even more dramatic. Henry looked at the dark clouds above them. Then he said, Get in the car. Sophia watched him for a second, then smiled and got in. The car was quiet at first. Sophia looked at him, waiting for him to talk. Henry sat quietly, trying to understand what had just happened. He had kissed her again, and this time he couldn't lie and say it was a mistake, because it wasn't. It felt like the most honest thing he had done in years. Sophia leaned back in her seat with her arms crossed. So, is this the part where you run away again? Henry looked at her. Number? Good, she said with a smile. Because I'm getting tired of that. He rubbed the back of his neck and let out a breath. I'm not good at this. Good at what? He paused. Relationships. Sophia laughed. Neither am I. But I don't think that's a problem. Henry looked at her. What if I ruin it? She held his gaze. Then we fix it. He had never met someone like her. Someone who wasn't afraid, who didn't walk away. And for the first time, he wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, he could stop running too. In the days after that night, things were different, but also the same. Henry was still the CEO. Sophia was still his assistant. But now there was something more between them. Their eyes stayed on each other longer. Their touches happened more often, even if quietly, and the tension between them grew. Sophia liked to push his limits. One day, during a meeting, she dropped her pen on purpose near him. As she picked it up, she whispered just loud enough, You're looking at me. Henry didn't respond, but he felt it. She kept challenging him, and he liked it. But he still wasn't ready to go public. He kept it a secret. He didn't talk about them. He didn't make anything official. And Sophia noticed. It was a Friday night. They were having dinner at his apartment when she finally said something. How long are we going to keep this going? Henry looked confused. Keep what going? Sophia put down her fork and crossed her arms. You know what I mean. He didn't reply. Yes, us, she said. You act like we're together, but you keep it all so quiet. It's like we're hiding something wrong. Henry didn't answer right away because he knew she was right, but he didn't know how to fix it. Sophia sighed. Henry, are you ashamed of me? His eyes widened. What? Number? Then why does it feel like you're afraid to admit we're together? Henry ran a hand over his face, feeling tired. It's not that. I've never done this before. Sophia was quiet for a moment, then gently asked, Are you scared of losing me? Henry felt those words hit him hard, because yes, he was scared. He was scared of being close, of opening up, of trusting someone, and then being left behind again. Sophia reached across the table and took his hand. Henry, I'm not Amelia. He held his breath. Sophia continued, "I'm not her. I won't leave when things get hard, but you have to let me in." Henry felt something break inside him because he wanted to believe her, but he wasn't sure if he could, and that scared him more than anything else. In the days that followed, Henry became even more distant, not on purpose, but because he didn't know how to handle it. Sophia noticed. She didn't push him, but she wasn't happy either. And then, on Wednesday, everything came to a breaking point. Sophia was called into a meeting with Henry and the other top managers. During the whole meeting, Henry didn't look at her once. He acted like nothing had ever happened between them. That was the final straw. When the meeting ended, Sophia followed him into his office and closed the door behind her. Henry turned around, surprised. "What is it?" Sophia didn't waste time. "What do you want from me, Henry?" He frowned. "What are you talking about? Do you want me? Yes or no?" He didn't say anything. Sophia stepped closer. "Because if you don't, just say it. But if you do, then stop treating me like I'm just another employee." Henry felt pressure in his chest. He knew he had to decide, but he wasn't ready. So he made a mistake. "Maybe we should end this." Sophia didn't move for a moment. Then she laughed, but it was cold, not happy. She picked up her bag and walked to the door. "Congrats, Henry. You got what you wanted." Then she left. This time, Henry didn't stop her. And that was the biggest mistake of his life. Henry thought he was doing the right thing. He had spent years building walls to protect himself. But now, standing alone, staring at the door Sophia had just walked through, he knew the truth. He had made a huge mistake. He tried to convince himself it was better this way, that staying distant was safer. But then the silence came, and he realized how painful that silence really was. Sophia, on the other hand, didn't want to think about Henry anymore. She was tired of waiting for him to admit how he felt, tired of pretending things were fine when they weren't. So the next day, she tried to move on. But forgetting Henry wasn't easy. He was everywhere, in the office, in meetings, in the hallways, and every time she saw him, she could feel his eyes on her. But this time, she didn't look back. She had made her decision. She was going to live her life without him, and Henry didn't know how to deal with that. In the days that followed, Henry changed. He was still the same serious, tough CEO on the outside, but inside, he was falling apart. He couldn't sleep, he couldn't eat right, and worst of all, he couldn't stop thinking about her. His apartment felt cold without her. The office felt dull without her laughter, and Henry realized something that scared him deeply. He didn't know how to live without Sophia Morris. But Sophia wasn't going to wait forever. On Friday night, she went out with friends. Henry only found out because he saw a photo on social media. She was at a bar, smiling, holding a colorful drink. And beside her, there was a man. Henry felt like he couldn't breathe. It wasn't just jealousy, it was panic, because for the first time, he saw that she might really move on without him, and he wasn't ready for that. That night, he did something he had never done before. He followed his feelings. He went to the bar. He didn't care if it didn't make sense. When he walked in and saw Sophia laughing, enjoying herself, he knew he had to act. He walked straight toward her. Sophia saw him right away. She didn't hide her surprise. "What are you doing here?" she asked. Henry didn't say anything because he didn't know what to say. Then Sophia narrowed her eyes. "Oh, I get it. You pushed me away, and now you show up following me around. Henry felt his stomach tighten. I need to talk to you. Sophia gave a short laugh and crossed her arms. Number? Henry stood still. Sophia, please. She looked at him. Now you say please? Where was that when you treated me like a problem and walked away? Henry had no response. Sophia took a deep breath and picked up her purse. You know what? Fine. Let's get it over with. Say what you need to say. Henry paused, but he knew he couldn't run anymore. So he said the one thing that truly mattered. I love you, Sophia. Sophia went still. Henry had never felt this nervous before. What? She asked, like she wasn't sure she heard him right. Henry took a deep breath. I love you. Sophia didn't speak. Then she gave a nervous laugh. Really? Now you decide to say that? Henry's heart was racing. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but Sophia cut him off. Henry, I waited so long to hear those words. She looked at him. But now, I'm not sure if I still want to hear them. Henry's chest felt tight. Sophia smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. If you really love me, then show me. Then she turned and walked away. This time, Henry knew he couldn't let her go. If he didn't do something, he would lose her forever. And Henry Smith wasn't ready to lose Sophia Morris. He had made every mistake. He pushed her away, avoided his feelings, and stayed silent for too long. But seeing her leave, knowing she might really be gone, he finally understood something. He couldn't live without her. Sophia Morris was the one thing that made sense in his world, and now he had to prove it. The next morning, Sophia was at her desk, trying to focus when she noticed something strange. People were whispering, looking down the hallway, and some were even filming with their phones. What's going on? She asked Max, who was watching with surprise. He smirked. I think your boss has gone crazy. Before she could reply, Henry Smith showed up, but not like usual. He wasn't in his perfect suit. He looked messy. He wasn't even wearing shoes. In his hands was a huge bouquet of flowers. Sophia almost choked on her coffee. Henry looked nervous, but determined. He walked straight to her desk and knelt down in front of her. The whole office went silent. Sophia was in shock. Everyone stared. Then Henry spoke. Sophia Morris, he said, swallowing hard. He looked like someone who had never been this open before. I was an idiot. A big, stupid idiot. Someone in the back said, That's true, and Henry gave them a sharp look. Then he turned back to Sophia. I ran because I was scared. I've never felt anything like this before, but you made me feel. The whole office let out a quiet breath. Henry took another deep breath. I don't want to run anymore. I don't want to spend another second without you. Without you, nothing feels right. Then he pulled a small box from his pocket. Sophia's eyes went wide. He opened it, and inside was a diamond ring. He gave her a nervous smile. Sophia Morris, will you marry me? Will you stay with me, even though I'm the most stubborn man you've ever met? People in the office began whispering. Someone laughed. Max whistled. Sophia felt tears in her eyes. Then she laughed, because the whole thing was so crazy and so perfectly Henry Smith. She looked at him on one knee and felt her heart fill with emotion. So she gave the only answer possible. Of course I'll marry you, you idiot. Henry laughed with relief, took the ring, and gently placed it on her finger. Then he kissed her, right there, in the office, in front of everyone. And no one had ever seen Henry Smith look that happy. Months later, Sophia still couldn't believe it was real. She stood in front of a mirror, wearing a beautiful wedding dress, trying to understand that in just a few minutes she would become Henry Smith's wife. His wife. If someone had told her that months ago, she would have laughed. But now, looking at herself, she knew that everything had happened exactly the way it was supposed to. The door opened, and Max stepped inside. "Are you ready?" Sophia took a deep breath, smiled, and nodded. More than ever, Henry stood at the altar, more nervous than he had ever been at any business meeting. He had never liked ceremonies or being in the spotlight. But the moment he saw Sophia walking into the church, he forgot how to breathe. She looked perfect, and for the first time, he wasn't scared. He knew this was what he truly wanted. She walked toward him with a bright smile, and when she stood beside him, Henry held her hand and whispered, "You look beautiful." Sophia smiled. "And you're sweating." He laughed quietly, and the wedding began. Their vows were full of emotion. Sophia made Henry laugh and tear up at the same time. When it was time to say, "I do," Henry didn't hesitate at all, because for the first time in his life, he was completely sure of what he wanted. And what he wanted was Sophia. The wedding reception was unforgettable. Max gave a speech that had many guests laughing with tears in their eyes. Sophia pulled Henry onto the dance floor, even though he said he didn't know how to dance. Later that night, they stood together, watching fireworks light up the sky. Henry hugged her tightly. "I never thought I could have something like this," he whispered. Sophia smiled against his chest. "Have what?" He looked into her eyes. "Someone like you." Sophia gave him a soft kiss. "Well, get used to it, because now you're stuck with me." Henry smiled, because this time he didn't want to run. He just wanted to stay with her forever. What did you think of Henry and Sophia's story? Leave your thoughts in the comments and rate this story from 0 to 10. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss a story that touches your soul.